there are lots of things I love about writing for children. Um, One of them is that I think it it is so important. My parents read to me every night when I was little, and I still hold that with me. I remember those as being some really wonderful times to bond with my parents and to also learn new things and be exposed to new stories. I remember my mom reading me Little Women and just dissolving into tears when Beth dies. And I think I was like 6 at the time, and I remember thinking, "What's with mom?" You know. But then later, as I reread it myself at 9 or 10, I'm the one bawling, you know. And I remember, oh, and so it's sort of, you know, sometimes rereading some of the same books is a way to sort of mark your growth, you know, in your understanding of them when you go back and you revisit a text again and again and again. And hopefully that's the hallmark of a good book, is when you can revisit it and you still get something new out of it. And so when I write, I try and think of writing on a number of levels. One is just pure enjoyment, that hopefully the book is entertaining and the illustrations are enjoyable and bright and vibrant and engaging to the kids. And on another level, that there might be some message that they get, you know, right off the bat, that there is not necessarily a moral to the story, but just sort of a feeling or a truth that you want them to take away from it. And then again, trying to create another level that is of enjoyment for the parents, as they're so often reading with them. And when a little one likes a book, it's going to be read a lot of times. So you want there to be language that's pleasing for both the children and the parents, and maybe even a little something worked into the text or the illustrations that's like visual metaphor or something that accompanies the text that may not be readily picked up by the kids, but maybe by the parents, and then provides a springboard for further discussion and involvement later on. Because I just think it's such a wonderful time for parents and kids to come together when they read, and to hopefully, I don't know if I've done it yet, but I hope someday to be able to create a book that little ones will look at and think, that was one of my favorites, you know, because that's a wonderful thing. I have my favorites, and I think it would be wonderful to be someone's favorite as well. So. Oh, Pennies from Heaven actually sprung from Heads Up, the story of 1/4, in that I had always had it in my mind after writing Emma's Gift that I would like to write this story of Heads Up, which is a story that actually happened or to my family in a way. The names have been changed and some of the circumstances, but I knew I wanted to write that, and in my mind I was just calling it the quarter story. And my husband had said, well, wouldn't it be great if you could write a book for every coin? And I said, oh, I don't know. You know, I was just planning on this one book. And then one day I was in the car and I thought, well, if I had other books, what would I call them? And I just tried to think of different phrases associated with coins. And so I thought, well, there's Heads Up for the quarter, because when you flip a coin. And then there was If I Had a Nickel, and Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And, oh, Pennies from Heaven. So I didn't know what the book was going to be about initially, just that would be the title, and it would fit in with this series. And then I started thinking, what would it be about? And I thought, well, maybe it would be about like simple gifts that like when you find a penny on the ground. I had read somewhere that someone said, when you see the penny on the ground and it says, "In God We Trust," it's just a little sign, you know, that somebody's looking out for you. And so originally I thought it would be just about little signs that you see all around you. And then one day I'm a huge Bing Crosby fan, and I was looking through a collection of his CDs, and I found the lyrics to Pennies from Heaven, a recording he had done, I think either at the end of the Great Depression or just as the nation was coming out of it. And it was about looking at both sides of something to see that you had to have the good and the bad. And I thought, oh, well, that's really more like it, because I think that it's a really intriguing concept for kids, this idea of good and bad, and how when you're little something always seems to be either all one way or all the other, you know, you're either totally happy or completely destroyed, you know, and at least that's the way it is with my little boy right now. But that there is this balance, and that if we just look for the good, so often we can find it, even in things that seem bad. and so sort of a joint inspiration. My husband, Bing Crosby. The message I hope that people take away from Pennies from Heaven is that life is full of good and bad, and you can't have one without the other. And this coexistence is so important, and that it's really our perception that allows us to choose how we experience the world around us, that we have a choice, not only to choose to do good or bad, but to see the good in the bad as well. Oh, let's see. My very first book was Emma's Gift for Abingdon Press, and I actually wrote it as a story to cheer up my grandmother. My husband and I got married, it'll be 7 years ago, October, and just a few weeks before we got married, my grandmother had a stroke, and she wasn't able to come to the wedding, and she just felt so horrible. And of course, we missed her too, but it was something she had really wanted to do, to be there. And so after the wedding, I had a little time off between films that I was working on, and so I sat down to write a little story to cheer her up. And so I wrote this story about a little girl whose grandmother couldn't come for Christmas, and sent it to my grandmother just to, you know, cheer her up, just a little something to make her smile, and sent a copy to my mom too. Here's what I sent my mana, I said, and she liked it so much. She said, "Oh, you should submit it. This should be published." I said, "Mom, I love you, but you're my mom, and you have to say this. It's a mom thing, you know." She said, "No, really, I just love it." Well, so I thought, well, I'll look for some harsher critics before I send it out. So I sent it out to some of my other friends, and they said, "Well, it's actually, it's okay, you know, you might submit it." And so just did some research and was lucky enough that it crossed paths with Abingdon Press at a time when they were interested, and I had the time, and that was that. So. Oh, when I am not writing, I'm illustrating. And when I'm not doing that, I am looking after my little boy John. He's 19 months old. For years I worked in animation, and I loved that, and it was such a wonderful experience. But it wasn't a schedule that was really conducive to having a little one. And so when my husband and I decided that we wanted to start a family, I thought, well, I love my artwork, and I don't want to stop doing that. So I was looking to segue into a career that would allow me to spend more time at home, and I love that. I love being on the floor and playing with my little guy and watching him learn and grow, and now we're expecting another one, so there may be less writing and more block building in my future.